Hey everybody, Rock DIY here. This is part 2 to my original video, which was the Hydrostar Drain Monster, removing a twist from inside the drum or replacing the cable. This video specifically is for reassembling the Hydrostar Drain Monster, because in most cases people will say just do everything in reverse, which can be complicated sometimes. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together. And on this first part, I'm going to be putting the spool and the short cable or the starter cable back in, and pretty loud, so you may have to turn your volume down. What we're going to do is take this end, you're going to run it through to the front, and then you want to orientate your bolt hole for the end of the cable here. And just for orientation purposes, this is how it has to go in the drum. You don't want it up like that. You want it like that when you bolt it in. All right, so what I've got to do is get the front in, the hole on the front, and then what I do is push the spool in, move it out of the way somewhat, and then if this is short, you want to extend it out some. And the reason why you want to extend it out is because you need some flexibility on getting it inside the drum. Okay, so you got to bend it, put it inside there, and be careful because it does want to whip as soon as it gets inside the drum. See here, I got the screw started, and then you want to leave this sitting off, because if you let it go like this, it'll want to spin on you. So just let it sit like that, and then you can see you got the nut on the back side started. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down, and you can see once again that that piece is oriented this way, basically going with this arrow on the outside of the drum. Next step is going to be to put this piece on, which will go on as such, and slide it in. Just a note, before you do put this back on, it's a good idea to put grease on this right here. I probably need to put some more on there, but you do want to grease that up if you're doing this. And then what you can do is put it on there, line it up with the holes, then you're going to take your bolts, run them from the inside out, grease this up. And you can see, get more grease on there, put it on, and then what you got to do is make sure that this piece and this piece are coming through the front. And then what you're going to have to do is try to get this to stay in place. Unfortunately, the cable inside is forcing it out of place, so you're going to have to manipulate it in order to get the nuts and bolts in. All right, so flat washer, locking washer. Get that nut started there. All right, and then get another bolt started across from it. Go ahead and put flat washer, a locking washer, and a nut. To fully tighten these down, you will need to pass a ratchet or a ratchet wrench or something to the inside to get this all tightened down. So I'm going to go ahead and put the other 3 on and then move on. All right, all the nuts and bolts are tightened. I didn't show it because it's painful to watch people tighten nuts and bolts, but all 5 of these are tightened down, and the starter cable, short cable, is tightened down as well. Now, I'm going to leave that about right there, because I'll have to join the long cable. Now, what needs to go on, again, don't forget about this washer. nylon, plastic, I'm not sure what it's made of, but I want to make sure that's on there. And you're going to put this on, line it up, and then you're going to take your 3 Phillips screws. I don't think I said it, well, I didn't show it, but I don't think I said it either, but in the previous video I mentioned cleaning out the drum and then spraying it down with some WD-40 or whatever. You can use a grease. When you've got it open, you can just take some grease and run it around. Use a rag when you do it. Be careful, and I should have mentioned this from the get-go. Be very cautious if you don't have these little things on here. Be very careful because the edges on this thing can be pretty sharp. Those 3 screws are tightened, and now what I have to do, I need to mention this. So this is your starter cable that's on the spool inside the drum. This one is where you're going to join your cable to, and this cable can stay the same size regardless of what cable you put on. So there's a longer 3/8, yeah, you can put 100 feet of 3/8, or you can put 50 feet of 1/2 inch, and this is 1/2 inch right here. This is where you would connect it. You don't need to change this out. If that's where you're going to connect it at. I have the carrier in the motor here with the belt. I'm going to start by, you'll notice that the belt's sitting here, and it's a good idea to leave the belt sitting right there. It just makes it easier. It'll be a little more complicated if the drum is on and then putting the belt on. I'm going to take that off. That's for the cover. And then also down here, I'll take this off. And then what I need to do, I'll leave the belt right there. And I'm going to go ahead and put the drum back in here, and then you have to pull the spring-loaded pin in the back to get it set in there. So go here. And you should hear a snap when it's in the right spot. When I was putting this cable back on, in my head I was thinking something's not right. And what's not right is, I'm not even sure how this happened because I took it off and didn't really mess with it. But basically, I connected 2 identical pieces, 2 identical ends to each other, and it's not supposed to be that way. This is where your attachments connect. So the cable should be this way. This will need to be oriented this way. You'll need to attach this here and your Phillips screw with split washer or lock washer. It's going to go on here. And you know you're putting this together right when the head of the screw doesn't protrude outside the connectors here. Needs to be pretty much flush. As far as putting the tensioner back on, there's only one way it can go on. So you're going to take this, push that inside the drum a little bit. Just it up or down as needed. Take your washer, put that on, and then put the locking knob on. It's got a little bit of play in it, and if you can move it some, just make sure that it's a straight shot as much as possible and then lock it down. That's on there. Next thing is to put the belt on. The way you do this is partially off and on. belt is on, I'm gonna roll it a few times to make sure it's staying in position. And I can put the cover back on, or shield. There it is, all put back together. Now I got to get the cable back into it. If you try to reverse this cable back into the drum like this is what's going to happen. You're going to end up with a big twist. So what you need to do is run the cable out straight and then go ahead and reverse it back into the drum. These are the tools that I use to reassemble and disassemble the Hydrostar Drain Monster. And you don't have to necessarily have one of these stubby ratchets, but 13mm socket fits the 5 nuts and bolts on the back side. You got some grease that you may want to grease it up when you put it back together. I also have a full-size 13mm ratchet wrench, 2 sets of pliers, and then I have a stubby 13mm ratchet wrench, the other set of pliers, and then the cross tip or fillet screwdriver. That is all you will need for this job.